Hey everybody, welcome back to the Note Genius YouTube channel. I have a very special guest here today, a true note genius, Mr. Scott Carson. When I first decided that notes is something that I wanted to go all in on, absolutely glued to his channel and the information that he shares. And so, still to this day, he will drop all kinds of gems, all kinds of industry inside information and just his experience over a number of years. So we're going to get a great interview here today. A lot of useful information. Scott, how you doing today?
Bryan, I am doing wonderful, man. Honored to be on here today. Glad to share with your audience and with you any nuggets we can partake to give them to help them earn an above average returns on their note business for sure. Whether they're buying their first one or their 100th one for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's just start out the gate. Just give us a brief introduction to who you are and how you became a professional note investor.
So I kind of fell into note investing coming out of the mortgage business. Back in the day, I worked with another guy, a buddy of mine, Boyd. We started a mortgage company here in Austin, Texas, that was aligned with an investor by the name of Bob Leonetti, who was teaching owner financing, creative financing on the Ronald Reagan circuit. And so for 4 years, I kind of have an apprenticeship not only on the mortgage side, the banking side, but also the note investing side, not only creating paper and selling paper, but also the non-performing side. So when everything hit the fan in 2008, I find myself in an ideal position to basically start targeting non-performing notes and just started dialing for dollars and marketing to get lists in and started getting non-performing note lists in and sharing my journey through videos and breaking down deals because no one knew what the hell a non-performing note was, and that kind of led me to becoming the note guy from people just like you watching my YouTube videos and connecting with me online and meet me as I was traveling across the country for a couple of years, just going out and meeting with banks and asset managers and meeting with investors across the country.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, so for you, like you said, you kind of stumbled into notes in a way. But most people who get into real estate investing is with the goal of eventually achieving financial freedom and that kind of life freedom that we touch on. But as we know, it's very rarely a smooth ride to the finish line, right? So what advantages does note investing provide that investors may not find in other more popular forms of real estate?
That's a really great question. And if I was a brand new real estate investor, let's talk about the hurdles that new investors face on the real estate investing side. First of all, it's lack of deal flow. That's the first thing. It all starts with deals, okay? And for most traditional real estate investors, they go the route of going to their local REIA club. And I think being a member of your local REIA club is fantastic. But you get pitched on so many shiny object syndromes, right? All these different types of niches and stuff like that, and there's all different marketing costs that go along with that. And so like many folks, they get into, I want to be a wholesaler because it doesn't cost a lot of money on the front end side, or they decide they want to be a fix and flipper because they watch too much HGTV. You know what I mean? Well, what was that include? Well, that means you've got to go out and either drive for dollars, knock on doors, or do a lot with direct mail campaigns to foreclosure lists or distress lists. That can cost a lot of money. And in states like Texas, where everything happens so quickly, that can cost you even more money because you've got to try to get, information out, two, three times. And 80% of sales comes after the fifth contact. Well, if you're in a very ultra competitive market and you don't have a lot of money, you're bootstrapped, you're limited on your marketing. So that puts you at a disadvantage right off the bat. Okay. Secondly, there's a lot of labor, a lot of knowledge that has to go into rehabbing properties, and that kind of stuff too. And you've got to go figure out, how am I going to fund this? Am I going to put money down? I can't qualify for a bank loan. There's a lot of different things that go along with that. Okay. What I liked about note investing coming from the real estate investing side, where I was a landlord and fix and flipper and already raising capital for stuff, is I like the fact that once you make the contact with a bank, now I'm not targeting owner finance notes, and this is not to piss anybody off. I just think that is a slow boat to nowhere. All right. I've always gotten the habit of targeting banks because they're the ones that have the most amount of notes. They're the ones that have the most amount of mortgages. And with the amount of money that people are spending mailing out to owner finance sellers or people who created an owner finance note and the low response rate, because you get a lot of tire kickers or low responses on trying to buy a note from somebody who's got one note, that never made sense to me. It always made sense to me if I can reach out on LinkedIn or pick up the phone and track down the right note seller and make right party contact with zero direct mail costs, just a little online, that made sense for me to get a list in that had 10, 20, 200 notes on a regular basis that I could cherry pick from. So that solved two things: lists and lack not being able to have a lot of marketing costs to do that. Now, of course, you still have to understand how notes work, and that's an education side. Everybody's got to have education no matter what you do. But those are the two biggest things I always like: the fact that a lender's going to send me 200 notes or 1,000 notes. There are 5 notes on a monthly, weekly basis in some cases. That was awesome. Plus the lack of competition compared to other niches out there. And thirdly, the fact that I don't have to be understand everything about note investing, the foreclosure costs, the servicing costs. No, no, no. Those are vendors to help you out that aspect of things. That always made a lot more sense to me in being able to buy in 20, 30 states versus just trying to deal with the competition in my own backyard. If that makes sense. Does that make sense for T, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to expand on something that you touched on a couple times. Is the marketing. You are very adamant in your content about like the deals are out there, the opportunities are out there, but you have to go out there and seek them and go find them. And a lot of people wish that deals would just come,
Yep.
kind of magically. What do you do to market to, I guess, the banks and stuff that you're getting the leads from, and then also to potential lenders, potential investors? And you've been in this for a while, so are there some strategies that you see have kind of phased out of more use, or is there something more useful that you do now than maybe you used to?
So I love how you try to be politically correct there. Because there are people out there. This is a big pet peeve of mine. People out there, oh, there's not many note deals. You can't find notes. Well, anybody that tells you that doesn't know how to market themselves out of wet paper bag. Okay. And I will stand by that to there because there's two questions I ask people all the time when it comes to marketing. A, how many either phone calls have you made out to potential asset managers and banks? Or B, how many emails have you sent out to a list of asset managers? Right. And the question is, well, how do you find a list of asset managers? Guess what? You start calling banks. You start reaching out on LinkedIn. Okay. This is something that you can actually automate through services like uh, Rocket, not Rocket Mortgage, but Octopus or Rocket Reach are two services used on LinkedIn for like 99 bucks a month or less that you can start reaching out to the right departments at banks. And if you go to LinkedIn, get you a free version of LinkedIn, make your profile complete, not half-assed. And by half-assed, I mean not putting like that you're a real estate investor or no investor. That's one thing people screw up on your profile photo, a smiling photo background, and say you're a real estate investor at least. Is if you go and look for a special asset manager job titles, secondary marketing managers, whole loan traders, chief credit risk officers, those four, even loan buyer, loan and note investor, put those 5 titles into searches on LinkedIn, you'll find plenty of people. And then it's just about of reaching out to them and knowing what to say. Hey, are you the right person at ABC Bank? Are you the right person at Bank of the West? Are you the right person at City National Bank or Bank of the Ozarks or Zion's Bank? That handles your distressed note sales. If not, do you know who that person is? All right. And that's just happens to do that. Like I said, 80% of sales comes after the fifth contact. You have people that have been around the note industry for about 10 years who got very spoiled that we had a lot of like note selling funds and hedge funds that would show up at different real estate conferences or note investment conferences and sell their deals. That was easy. You could get deals sent to you. You could be lazy and only buy from Granite Loan Solutions back in the day or Lutetian or FCI Exchange if you wanted to buy on there. Okay. That's not the case. Those companies have gone away. There are still plenty of mortgages out there to buy, but guess what? They're not showing up to a conference that's got 100 people or 200 people. There's no reason for them to do that. They understand the power of marketing. And so that's the thing that you have to start doing is understand it's the 21st century, not the 19th century. Killing off an Amazon forest with direct mail doesn't make sense. And you actually have to pick up the phone and leverage social media, which is free. So that's the thing. I preach it from the rooftops. You don't have to have a Harvard MBA in marketing to do this. What you have to do is just look like you know what you're doing and start reaching out and make it a part of your marketing. It's not the way like I used to be where I had to make 50 to 100 phone calls a day back in the day. I was like something like out of like Wall Street or The Pursuit of Happiness and Will Smith making, from that movie. Great movie. And I used to do that. But these days, leveraging LinkedIn, leveraging the Mortgage Bankers Association membership to see who's on that or the different events that host across the country and seeing who's speaking. You just have to think outside the box differently than most real estate investors are used to in buying a list and doing a direct mail campaigns and going that route. Sorry, I got on my soapbox there for a second.
No, I know that's a very hot topic for you. And I can say that stuff does work. I mean, I did try Octopus CRM and reached out to a bunch of people, and even if you get 1 out of 100 responses, I mean, that's a contact that you wouldn't have had before. So it works for sure.
And the follow-up, that's the biggest thing is just understanding like somebody's not waiting around for you to give them a phone call or shoot them a message.
Mhm.
Hey, I got the right person. Let me call the corporate office of the bank. Hey, can I speak to Bryan Royster in special assets? Oh, yeah. And that goes above and beyond like anything else does, you know?
Sure, sure. So, you source these assets and you're looking to do some deals. And obviously, one of the most important things we can do is due diligence, right?
Mhm.
Where are some areas that you find investors maybe falling short or missing red flags in the due diligence process?
If you come over from traditional real estate investing side and don't understand that you're buying a note and not the actual property, that's the number one thing. People look at a spreadsheet or tape and see the address and they start Googling the property and they get OTSC syndrome. Oh, that's so cute, right? And I'm going to buy that house. Actually, you're not buying the house. Okay. I'll give you an example. I got a deal in yesterday, a bid approved on a property in West Palm Beach, Florida. It's a 2-2 condo. Um, and about 1,200 square foot. It's worth 440, right? The borrower owes 380 on it. I bid 200. My bid was accepted. Okay. Now I don't own the property. I would have to go through the foreclosure process, which can take 6 to 9 months in Florida in the situation to foreclose on it. And then if it sells, if I submit a bid at the auction, I'll get whatever I submit my bid at the auction. Hopefully, if it doesn't bid at the auction, then I have now foreclosed on the property and taken it back. Then I own the property and can sell it for higher price, full value after rehab and stuff like that. So that's the number one thing. People bid on stuff way over like what's owed, or over the not understanding the difference between the legal balance and that what you're buying the note is different than what you're buying the property. So but you still have to know the value of the property. Second thing is understanding foreclosure time frames. Every state's different when it comes to foreclosure times. I'll bid a little higher on Texas assets where I live here because 30 days of foreclose. We do everything fast here in Texas, you know? Whereas like if I'm going to buy something in Ohio, it's going to take probably 9 months to foreclose. So I have to adjust my bid down. And then also looking at what is your potential strategy. The number one mistake I made my first 2 years as an investor, Brian, was I tried to foreclose on everything. You know, I had borrowers in it that hadn't paid for a couple of years, and I came from, oh no, I'm just going to foreclose. So then I'm forking out attorney fees, servicing fees, and then I got to deal with repair costs if I don't sell it. Whereas if I should have modified and done some sort of payment plan with the borrower, I'd had a whole lot more cash flow coming in, and it would have been exactly like your hat says. It would have been passive income at that point for the most part without having all this stuff in 90 days versus waiting 9+ months for stuff to happen. So that's the thing is your biggest bang for the biggest bang for the buck 9 times out of 10 if it's an occupied asset is working some sort of payment plan with the borrowers and going that route. If it's vacant or somebody's deceased, yeah, I'm sorry, it's Halloween, but no ghost is going to start paying their mortgage on time again. So that's going to be the route to foreclose. But that's the beauty I've always loved is understand that you've got multiple options. If you just try to pigeonhole and stuff where I'm just going to foreclose and everything, you're really going to miss out on a lot of the pros of note investing.
Nice. Okay, so we've attracted the asset. We've done some due diligence, even if that's just at the most basic stage, just making sure the property is there on Google Maps or whatever you need to
Yeah.
do. And then we need the money to buy the deal, right? So when it comes to raising private capital, it's rare that any of us really have millions just waiting around to be shelled out for investments. So we're going to have to bring in some capital, which can be an intimidating prospect, to someone who's not so experienced in that. So where would you recommend people start looking to attract capital, and what can make someone look like they're worth investing with?
Well, I would go down to your local plasma dealership and start selling plasma at 25 bucks a spot. That's not going to raise a lot of private capital for you, you know what I mean? Um, but what you need to do first and foremost is understand something. There's two things, and this is a big mind block for a lot of folks. And I got this beat into me with a baseball bat from my mentors early on. Everybody is a buyer, a seller, or a funding source. Okay? The funding source might not be their own funds, but they can become a referral for you. They have friends, they have networks. So that's what's so great about what you're doing with your YouTube and podcast is getting the word out what you're doing so it attracts more people that may invest with you. And then realize too, it's a rapport building process in raising capital. It's not going to happen usually overnight. We often find that folks invest with us have been listening or following us for 6+ months. They've networked with us for 6 months at the local RIA clubs or our networking events. And that's the number one fatal mistake most new investors make is they wait to start raising capital when they have a deal and then they're behind the eight ball. They've got a week or 30 days and they are like, oh, this doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work because you wait to the last minute to try to get. It's like trying to do your thesis for an MBA the last night of the program versus having all year to do it. That never made any sense to me. So start marketing for capital, talking about previous deals you've done or deals that you're working on or tapes that you've got in by mapping the list of assets on Batch Geo and posting it to your LinkedIn or social media or sharing it with your email database. Like, hey, here's a list of that I'm working on because people love to work with doers. All right. And it takes a while. That whole, like you and I talked about, 80% of sales comes after the fifth contact. Is you have to submit that little seed of knowledge. Like, oh, I need to think about Brian. Brian's an investor. Or especially now as we roll into the first of the year here in 2026, January, February, and March, what are people thinking about? Well, getting skinny and also reallocating their retirement, doing something different, right? So getting out and networking and then making those relationships with business cards, connections, and then just following up with them on a regular basis, once a week in an email blast, once a week on at least a post about what you're doing. I would say once a day on social media is talking about something you're doing, but keep continuing to share. If you think about all the, like we have right now, we got the World Series going on, we got the NFL, we got college football, just watching Texas beat up Vanderbilt before we got on here today. And you know what most of the commercials are?
Mm.
Fast food and drugs. We're going to get you fat and then we're going to give you a drug to try to get skinny and you're going to end up with, diarrhea, death, or anal leakage, some sort of thing. You know what I mean? But it's the same thing over and over and over. And you have to kind of think about that when you're marketing. I mean, I like targeting self-directed IRA investors, at your local counties by pulling lists. Those people are investors, so they have that mindset. They've got money because they've either bought a property or lent money out of their IRA for that. So you don't have to go in and tell them how the sausage is made. Just tell them, hey, I make some good sausage with non-performing and performing notes, and I can give you above average return for a short period of time. And then it's all about the follow-up. Just follow up. This is one of the ways that we teach all of our students how to raise capital is like, listen, go create you a little pitch deck, 10-minute video about who you are, what you're doing, and maybe a deal or two. And then just continue to follow up with IRA investors in your local area or the counties you're buying and just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. It's just what it comes down to more than anything else. But most people give up after that first contact or that first email blast. Nobody called them up and wanted to fund $250,000, so they give up. And you can't do that in today's world. It's all about follow up, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
Nice. You mentioned going to RIAs and local meetups and stuff. And typically, when you do that, you're going to be the only, if not one of the only note investors there because it's not such a well-known niche. But when it comes to networking with other note investors and finding partners to maybe share some deal flow with or just use as a reference, how do you recommend other than maybe LinkedIn is probably a pretty good source of meeting other note investors. But I know there are tons of conferences all over the place, and I have an idea how you feel about those. But let's talk about how you can network and expand your note investing kind of network.
So no, so there's two things there. Yeah, if you want to go connect with other note investors, yes, going to the local the conferences, note specific RIAs are great to go to and network with other note investors there. But you're not going to find a lot of private capital. You will find a little bit, but it's not going to be the same thing as like going to your local RIA or going to a different type of real estate investing conference of some sort. Okay. Or doubling down on what you're doing. Because here's the thing, if you're going to a local note conference, everybody there's are looking money and they want to make 12% or greater on their money. You're not going to get cheap funds at 7 or 8% because they're all sharks. If you jump in a pool of sharks at SeaWorld, you're going to get eaten. There's not a lot of chum there for people to buy. So going to your local RIA meetings and networking with new people there, because that's where most people are going to go. They want to go to learn aspect of things. So setting yourself apart by going and being the local special, starting a special interest group, going and sharing a couple case studies. The most untapped thing, Brian, that we have seen for the last 15 years is when local RIAs give you the opportunity to get up and say haves and wants.
Hmm.
All right. And so many people are scared to get up and share, hey, I've got a deal that I'm working on. I'm able to pick up a note on a property here locally or wherever it is. It's worth 100. The guy owes 90. I'm going to pick it up at 45, $50,000. And if I can get them reperforming, which I think I can, it's going to be about a 17, 18 yield. I'm looking for somebody who's got the 50 grand to fund the deal that I can give them an 8 to 10% return for a short period of time. So it's all about reach. Like I said, mentioned before, when people hear notes, they think 30 years. You have to re-educate them. And you have to just talk with people about it and what's going on. So that's the reason my idea of going to a note expo or a noteworthy investor summit, the DME, that's great for networking and meeting other people there, but you're not going to raise a lot of capital most of the time at those things. So I like going to your IRA conferences or going to FinCon is a big event I like to go to once a year and connect with other finance creators, or getting on other people's podcasts is one of the best things you could do when raising capital. When you talk about a case study or two or a deal that you did, so many finance podcasters are looking for people to come on and talk about niches. It's an easy way to raise a ton of money talking about a case study or two to somebody else's audience. That's like you're on stage. You know what I mean? And you don't have to fly anywhere. You can do it from the comfort of your own home, which is one of the most beautiful things you can do. And then that's why I like to work smarter versus working hard. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I've traveled tons and been to all those events. I mean, we used to get 800, 900 people at a noteworthy investor summit and would raise money from that because you have finally enough people to show up to it. But if you're going and hanging out with sharks, it's not going to find you a lot of private capital. You got to go where the money is, and that's going to be your local RIAs, and networking. Maybe even like BNI, going to a BNI group once a week or twice a week in your local area. I mean, in San Diego, you got a ton of them, and it's a lot of great experts. There's not going to be a note investor there. There might be a real estate investor or a realtor, but you're going to go talk with professionals that have money, but they don't have the time to invest in real estate. And you want to be that opportunity to solve that need, that issue. They want to make more money. They want to do something. They don't know where to go, don't know how to do it, and you want to step into that aspect of things. That's my whole opinion on that from being a note investor for over 20 years now.
No, that's great. That's great. I want to go back to something you said earlier when you mentioned in your first 2 years of note investing, you made the mistake of trying to foreclose on everything. And obviously, there are going to be lessons that we need to learn as we learn and grow in our business. But is there any deal that you can think of that maybe went awry and you're like, okay, I need to take a step back and rethink how I'm approaching this business?
Yeah, there was a property in Houston, Texas, we bought a note on.
Mhm.
And um, what was sad is our servicing company lost our collateral file.
Mm.
Yeah, complete collateral file went missing. So we couldn't foreclose on this bar. Okay. Um, there was a tenant in it. We couldn't foreclose on the bar, but there's a guy that moved into it. And so we had to try to evict him. We actually evicted him 3 times. He would move out and then move back in. Seriously, it was not fun at all. So we ended up having to reassess it. Like, well, I've got 50 grand in our funds into this deal. What are we going to do to get our money out of the deal? I can't foreclose because we don't have the collateral file. So we're missing assignments and allonges, don't have the physical copies of those, which you need that to be able to foreclose on any type of note deal. And so we like, well, the taxes are we're behind the taxes. We need to pay the taxes. I was like, wait a second, why don't we just force a tax sale? Why don't we just send a separate attorney to go bid up the tax auction and we'll do that. So that's what we did. We sent an attorney by there to bid up the tax auction. He bid it up like 85, $90,000 because the house was worth about 140. We were only into 40, and 2 other people were bidding against him. So he bid it up and then stepped away, and then it went to it sold at the tax auction, and we got paid our money plus the tax overage. So we had to think outside the box a little bit on that deal for stuff. You're going to have, people file bankruptcy delay things. You're going to have issues like what happened back in 20, I can say 2020 with COVID, with them delaying foreclosures for over a year. In 2010, we had notes in South Carolina where the attorney general stopped the foreclosure process for 12 months. You know what I mean? So that's why I always like buying notes, because if you buy them at the right price, especially non-performing, you can afford a couple hiccups and delays along the way to protect yourself. And that's why it's always important to, when you get stuff in, I always say get the collateral file sent to you first so you know that they're there versus shipping them directly to your servicing company. And now we don't ship the actual collateral files to them. We actually hold it in-house here. And just get creative, talk with somebody. I didn't come up with that idea of the tax auction without running by my mentor and say, hey, I'm running this pickle. What do I do? And I think I see a lot of investors, they want to go one route and it doesn't hit that. And they get a, they stub their toe, like, oh, don't know what to do. And they're too embarrassed to ask for help. Ask for help. Pick up the phone, ask somebody, hey, I'm in this pickle. What do I do? How do I get around it? Can I still make money in this deal? Like I had a lady call me yesterday in Ohio. This property's going to foreclosure from, it's drug on about 2 years for her. And it's just the borrower keeps having these little things that pop up, like they did a TRO. I'm like, well, that's great. That's fine. Let them do it. You're getting down that road. She goes, well, I only expected it to be like 6 months. I'm like, you bought it in Ohio. Ohio, has a longer foreclosure process. Well, I thought I could do it faster. I'm like, what did your attorney tell you? 18 months. I'm like, well, you're right on track then. You know what I mean? Keep that in mind. So talk with people. Really don't over exaggerate. Yes, we all get excited and tend to think about the best possible outcome versus the worst outcome. 99% of the time, it's gonna be somewhere in the middle of that. Keep that in mind. All right.
Got you. That's good. That's good stuff. Um, as I kind of mentioned in the beginning, when I first decided that notes was something I wanted to get into, I found your YouTube channel and really kind of studied what you mentioned on there. I came across your platform, We Close Notes. But for an industry that largely kind of flies under the radar, what drives you to share the information and the resources so openly? You mentioned there's little competition or not as much competition in this field as other forms of real estate, but at the same time, it's like you're kind of giving away the sauce in a sense, where it's like I could be creating, more opportunities internally. Is it just that abundance mindset, or what makes you want to just kind of share your
I
knowledge?
love that question. I get that question all the time. Why do we give away the good juice? You know, Eddie Speed actually about 8 years ago asked me, he goes, Scott, you give away all this good stuff. We charge for everything. Why do you give away? And I'm like, well, because it's a different age than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. All right. There's a little tool called Google and ChatGPT and YouTube. If you overcharge, people are going to go find something on YouTube, that information on YouTube, because somebody eventually is going to share it or they're going to reach out to somebody. So I read a book years ago, What Would Google Do? All right. And it's a great book about when Google built the platform, they didn't keep it all quiet. They opened it up to app designers and things like that to come in and make the platform that much stronger. And I've always been a big believer that there's plenty of deals to go around. There's still plenty of distressed debt, even with record low defaults like we've had since COVID for the most part, but that number's creeping up. There's still plenty of opportunities out there for everybody to buy if you're willing to market. Now, here's another thing. Back in I want to say back in 2000 and yeah, definitely 2001, 2002, I was facing foreclosure myself on a property. Laid off. I was unemployed for a while. I had bought two investment properties in my primary back in the day because we had such great credit. Well, I was behind on all six of those mortgages. Okay. And I remember praying to God at night, like, God, help me get out of this some way or another. Right. And I got rid of the two investment properties. We were able to do a forbearance the day before foreclosure on my primary and keep it. And I said, thank you, God. And then when I got into that opportunity, working for Bob Lee and Eddie and Jamie Kale and starting a mortgage company with my buddy Boyd, I basically was traveling to all these Ron LeGrand seminars and going to all these amazing real estate clubs and real estate conferences as a vendor. But I took the opportunity to suck up all that knowledge. And during that period, 2004, 2008, it was just an amazing apprenticeship. So when I left the mortgage business in 2008 and was going a little through a bit of finance, I said, God, help me out. If you help me out now and get through this, I promise to help as many people along the way as I possibly can. And that's what I did. And still to this day, that's why we love to do so much content. That's why we've got the number one podcast channel. I mean, the number one podcast, number one YouTube channel for no investors is because we do the things that everybody wants to keep hush hush about. Like, how do you break down a tape of deals? How do you find them? Look, that's what people are looking for. You might as well help them, because then they are going to invest with you, or when they get a tape in, they're going to call you up because you're the one that helped them out to find stuff. And while they may want to buy one, there may be 100 opportunities on there. And that's the way I always looked at it. If I could help bring in more people, I'll give you just a great example. Like I said, I was working on a tape of notes before we jumped on here. It came in from an asset manager I bought stuff from 6 months ago was the last time I bought from, but they sent me these tape of 88 vacant reverse mortgages that were non-performing. I made an offer on 20, but since I reached out to some of my students, we were able to make offers on 60 of them. Okay. That makes my relationship with that asset manager that much more valuable because they got bids on a lot more versus me just submitting my bid on my 20 that I made an offer on. And I'm not, the folks that bid with me, I'll charge a administration fee to help them close a deal on their accepted bids. But that's the most beautiful thing that I love doing more than anything else, Brian, is when students get a deal approved or get a deal accepted or they close on their first deal. That's the biggest enjoyment that I ever get. I don't have kids, all right? And I always count my students as kids because when they close that first deal, the excitement, they're like floating on air. They understand that they can do this. They can understand they're making a 12, 13, 30% yield on a non-performing note or a performing note now, and it changes their whole outlook in life. The thought of them never being able to retire is now replaced with like, I have an opportunity here to build true financial independence through passive income through performing and non-performing notes. And it's the biggest thrill I get. I mean, I love closing deals, but I get a bigger thrill by helping those achieve success because I understand what it was like to be like that years ago. So that's my philosophy and why we give and give and give.
Nice. Well, let's continue on the topic of your students. You have your own note investing community where obviously the education is there. Sounds like the resources are there to kind of find and do some deals within the community. What can someone expect to find should they join you and join? Yeah.
They're going to find that we're not going to blow any smoke. All right. I may not be everybody's cup of tea, and that's a-okay with me. But you're gonna learn something walking away. Whether it's taking like our free class, we have a free 3-hour class that we teach on a regular basis, noteweekend.com. They'll learn the basics and they'll understand, oh, this is maybe I want to dip my feet in the water. What is a non-performing note? How do I make money on this? That's a great starting point. It doesn't cost anything. Then our 3-day workshop. We host that about once a quarter. We're going to show them how to find these deals direct from banks. We're going to show them how to raise capital, what to say, what not to say, what letters to send out, what postcards to send out to IRA investors to get them to say yes to you and no to everybody else. And then also how to turn non-performing into performing. As we say, instead of rehabbing the property, we rehab borrowers to make things happen. So we'll show you the ins and outs. You're not going to learn note investing from a 3-day class. You're not going to learn note investing from attending a conference. You will learn a lot more of the nuggets of it. You're going to learn more by pulling the trigger in your first deal, and we'll show you how to do that by having to break down the list of notes, how to find the deals, separate them from the duds. And that's one thing that stands out is that we break these tapes down regularly, not only for our audience, but also on our YouTube channel to show folks, okay, here's what this makes sense to bid at this. This doesn't make sense, and go from there.
Nice, nice. Scott, we're definitely going to have to do a part 2 of this. I have many more questions that I just don't have time for right now. I'll finish with 2 more. One, we're right around the corner from 2026, and there's a lot of movement going on. There's a lot of things changing. I see you have, AI Scott is is he up and running already, or is it still working?
My AI clone is up and running and helping on average about 15 people a day right now answer questions 24/7. And the answers it's given, I chuckle about because they're more accurate than me talking to somebody most of the, I'm just joking, but it's literally, yeah, my AI clone is doing a great job of sharing people. If you go to delphi.ai/Scott Carson, you have access to a clone that's got over 15 years of experience in its brain. I did a whole Vulcan mind meld with it. And that's great. That's an opportunity for folks to really dive into some stuff.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it is as we enter this new year and just total shift in how we operate businesses at all levels, incorporate this new technology. What is something that note investors should be on the lookout for as we move forward, and how can they apply these things to maybe grow and scale their business in a way that we couldn't do before?
So here's the number one thing. Don't wait till 2026 to start doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Turn 2026 into a 14-month year versus a 12-month. If you wait till January 1st to write down your goals and start taking action, you're already behind the 8 ball. Because here's the thing, note investors, banks, they love the fourth quarter and the first quarter of the next year. That's where more money is raised. It's where more deals are taken care of and bought because banks and lenders will get stuff off their books either by December 30th or the end of March 2026, depending on how their financial fiscal accounting stuff is. So pick up the phone, start double down on the marketing side, really start reaching out to people more so than anything else. I love AI, and it's a great tool to use in marketing. If you don't know what the hell to say, type in what you're trying to do in ChatGPT, and it's going to spit out a letter or email campaign for you. It's going to sound a whole lot better than you. That's a great thing. So there's zero excuse not to come up with either a letter campaign to IRA investors or what should you say on a LinkedIn post for some stuff. Thirdly, it's all about, like I say, taking action, using AI to find hedge funds, to find the right parties. If you get a name, a lot of times you can type in that person's name and their job title and ask for an email address, and ChatGPT can come up with it a lot of times. And so we've been using that quite a bit to pull email contacts from different conferences that we kind of track every year. So that's a great thing. You can be doing that at any time. Late night hours while you're watching, college football or the NFL or whatever like that. Just use that to start making contact. And like I said, making a contact is so key because it leads to other things. If you just want to run around looking for a MLS listing for a note, that's not going to happen. So you got to do what most people don't, and you'll have results that most people only dream of.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, cool. We'll wrap it up with that one. Scott, where can people find you? How can they get in contact with you?
Really easy. You can go to our website, weclosenotes.com, to find out our classes. Our number one podcast, the Note Close Show, is good. But if you'd like to pick my brain, you can always do that by doing and going to talkwithscottcarson.com. That's my little handle here, talkwithscottcarson.com. It'll take you directly to my calendar and schedule a phone call with me. And you can pick my brain, ask me questions. I'm always glad to talk with new or seasoned investors to find out ways that they can become the bank and start cashing in on the sexy side of real estate by becoming a note investor. But first and foremost, the most important anybody watching this or listening to this can do, Bryan, is kicking ass and taking names of the Note Genius here. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review. Go do that because he's doing a great job. And we don't have enough quality people providing quality content like Bryan is doing. So make sure you give him a subscribe and follow. Hit that little bell to follow.
I appreciate that. Very grateful for the endorsement, man. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me. Like I said, we will be back for part two for sure. Many, many more questions to ask, and I'm sure you have plenty more to say. So, Scott, thanks again. Enjoy college football for the rest of the day, and hopefully the NFL tomorrow. And we'll catch up soon.
We'll see you at the top, buddy. Hook 'em
Yeah.
horns.